Hi, welcome to my podcast, Talking Travel with Wendy. I travel the globe interviewing really cool people in small hospitality and tourism businesses. Join me each week as I discover and share something or someone new with you. You can find more at www.travelwithwendy.net. And remember, it's always an adventure when you travel with Wendy. Hey all, I am back, and it's been an unbelievably crazy season since December, so it's been a while since I've recorded, and apologies. I'm so behind, but thank you so much for the faithfulness. I truly appreciate you. Today's podcast is about our recent European real estate purchase in Italy and the journey we've been on. So let's get to it because I know many of you have thought about it or are thinking about moving to Europe, how to do it. And since I pride myself on being an honest source of information, here's our journey. As a travel writer, blogger, podcaster, vlogger, etc., I live and love to travel. So after living in Germany for a total of 9 years, you could say I've been Europeized. I'm pretty sure that's not even a word, but my John came up with it years ago, and it sounds pretty funny. And it is true. After moving back to America in 2019, I knew that part of my heart and soul would remain in Europe, and eventually we would return to Europe part-time or full-time in the future because there was a shift in my thinking somewhere between that time, 2014 to 2019. While living overseas during those years, my global worldview changed. Also, once I learned the German language, this opened up opportunities that I would have otherwise missed, from potato festivals to wine festivals to local celebrations of cabbage and many more countless experiences. My time in Europe was much different than if you were to visit for a 7 to 14 day, hitting the highlights of the country that you're visiting. The collective mindset also of Europeans was very different from what I was living in America. Their emphasis on health, hiking, outdoor recreation, art, history, and the appreciation really spoke to my soul. So once I was immersed in the culture, the countries, and the continent, I wanted more of it. So moving to Europe and eventually buying a house in Italy was definitely in my future, and I believe now destiny. Why? Why is a good question. We definitely wanted a second home is a loaded answer. We have family ties in Europe and also my travel business. It was beginning to make financial sense to have a stationary European location to avoid the very expensive back and forth with international flights and a place to rest my head during tours and exploring. Another big reason why, and this may sound silly, was the food, or is the food. I am a huge foodie. I once was a restaurateur. I had a restaurant in Huntsville called Around Your Table. It was local recipes and foods that we brought around the table to you using locally resourced. It was just it opened in 2008, so it was ahead of its time. And didn't make it because it was also the year of the stock market crash. So then I also created a local nonprofit called Deep Roots of Alabama right here in Huntsville, Alabama. And this was a small nonprofit which focused on educating children on how to grow their own food. And at the time, we were teaching thousands of students a 3-tiered program on how to grow, harvest, and prepare fresh food. However, it was not really supported by the state, and our funding ceased, and so did the program. And my heart was just kind of broken. So it seemed kind of kismet that we would receive orders to go to Stuttgart, Germany, and it seemed like when a window was closing, another one was opening, like, what did Maria von Trapp say? The food in Europe is extremely fresh, seasonal, local, and has little to no processing, especially if you just eat it raw or cook it slightly. There is a difference. So this really kick-started Travel with Wendy. I began writing for military websites as a travel blogger in 2014, and that was just immediately right after we arrived in country. And so the entire time we were over there, I was starting this Travel with Wendy business. However, I had graduated with a travel and tourism degree years ago from Johnson & Wales in 1990, and I had always been in the hospitality or travel industry throughout all those years. Another reason why, and it's an elephant in the room, but regardless of your political affiliation over the past 10 years in America, I have felt it could be very divisive. And honestly, I'm just shielded from that division when I'm overseas. When I share that I'm American, most Europeans are always receiving it with curiosity and compassion. So moving to Europe as an American is definitely on the rise, and it's probably a nice respite and a reason to get away from just the constant in-your-face vitriol. So let's talk about the search. This is John's favorite thing to do. He loves scrolling through real estate websites and apps and all different kinds of real estate offices around the globe. I have countless photographs of him looking at different real estate. So this was actually a fun part for us. And I believe finding the right place is a personal preference. We began ours in Germany and in the Schwarzwald, or the Black Forest to begin with, because John and I both love this region and it would be closer to family there. However, really quickly on, we learned that the cost of homes in Germany plus utilities were very similar to stateside prices, and it was cost prohibitive for us as a second home very early on in our search. So then we chose Portugal, and we both love Portugal. John and I recently had friends who retired close to Portugal in Spain, and with the knowledge I know of the country and the tours I do all the time in the country, it's so wonderful. We were confident we would both find something that we enjoyed. However, this past spring, during our search visit, we were there a little bit longer along the coast. I was involved in a little car accident. It was nothing huge. I'm okay. It was just a texting teen. It could have happened anywhere, but I did have a trip to the ER, and the hospital experience was a bit horrific. We waited over an hour for emergency services to arrive at the scene on this street, and then the conditions of the hospital were just not very good. And I had to wait another 4 hours in the hospital as well, and I actually ended up not seeing anyone, any doctor or anything. So my experience was not good, and so as you are aging like we are, having good medical care is critical. So that kind of was one of the factors of not choosing Portugal. But we also read that the golden visa, if we did decide to do that in the future, had increased to 500,000 euros instead of 350,000 euros, which was a deterrent in and of itself, because that would mean, selling our house in America, and we're not ready to do that yet. So then it was Italy next, and I was very excited because I have dear friends from the north to the central part of this country, and I visit Italy several times a year, either with group tours or for exploring, and I always typically visit my friend Candy. You'll see her with the red hair in a lot of my photos, and she says Italy's easy because we love the wine, which is so true. There really hasn't been an Italian wine I'm not a huge fan of. And I'm also a fan of the way of life for Italy. It's a slower pace of life. They have il dolce far niente, which is just mean the sweetness of doing nothing. So this is definitely not my American pace, and that's probably my fault, but it's just, I tell people it's shifting down to gear 1, which is great. You can't do everything you want to do. It forces you to slow down, and everything from eating to exploring is on a slower speed, which is counterintuitive for me. So it forces me to do that, and I just really enjoy it. We use the Idealista app, which is an app you can do for real estate searches, and we took our time. We spent 6 weeks last year in 2024, and we went from Piemonte in the north all the way to Rome and then to Apulia to find out which was a right fit for us. So I would recommend taking your time, spending a lot longer time while you're over there, seeing which area fits and also fits your budget. So the next thing I would recommend is to embrace the culture. And we've had so many military moves. I've learned how to adapt, how to move, and adapt quickly to the environment in which we are. And I always consider these like new chapters in a book. So when one chapter ends, another one begins. And it doesn't mean that there isn't going to be hiccups along the way. You just have to smile and figure things out and move forward. So embracing the culture of the country that you're in, which means not trying to make it America, but to really try to love what is special and unique about the country that you're visiting or planning to live in. So the first thing I do is I try to learn some local customs. This is very, very important. In Italy, I was talking about the pause or the penicella, which is a little nap during the day. And this is very important because years ago during farming, this is the hottest time of the day. So farmers rested and you couldn't really do too much. And so today they still honor and respect that time, and most businesses are closed for this short period. But, closer to the bigger cities where they have tourists, of course, they're still open during those hours. And we didn't have any problem at IKEA in Rome during that time, too. So definitely some businesses stay open. But in the smaller towns, banks, post offices, butchers, a lot of them are closed during that midday. It's not just Italy, Germany, France, Spain. Most Europeans, many European businesses and countries respect religious holidays, weekends, and just other periods of rest during the year. And this is just a cultural emphasis on work-life balance and community well-being to support the community they're in. So it's just important to respect and adapt to those customs. And it may create some frustrations at the beginning when you're doing your search, but I would say just embrace it. There's a reason why, and it's the beauty of being in a different country and what they find to be very special. So festivals are also very important, so I would recommend definitely attending some of these. You will find out what is really cool about the area, and they're always celebrating something in Europe. In the local to the large cities, festivals are just really big. So whether it's like the Tartufo Festival in Alba or the Chocolate Festival in Perugia, Germany, we had so many festivals. Every single weekend there was a festival for something. And it was more than a fundraiser, and it just a lot of fun. They had local artisans come from out in the country into the city to have like a farmer's market and different entertainers. So it's just really a unique way to find out about the culture of the country that you're in. So attend the festivals for sure. Next, learn the language. This is really important, and I cannot emphasize this enough. John and I do argue a little bit about people having a propensity of languages, and I disagree. I think you just have to do the work, and it's hard work. And they say it takes about 500 hours to master a second language. And I had about 200 hours of German, and I could communicate and be understood. And I just kept plugging away. I tried to learn new words. It is imperative and huge that you try to immerse yourself when you are visiting. Most native speakers are thrilled when you even try to talk to them, and Italians really love it when you're trying to learn the language and you just honor them with trying. So I've learned a phrase, it's prossimo anno perfetto italiano, which means next year I will speak perfect Italian, which is probably not true, but I am hoping to be understood a lot better. I use a program called Fluenz, and I started with this back in 2014. I prefer it over some of the other ones that you've heard of, mostly because it's conversational software of everyday discussions that you're going to have. So like how to get to the grocery store, where you should park, meeting up with a friend and having a coffee, where you're going shopping for clothes. These are conversations that you will have in real life, and the other ones were much more formal and rote, and honestly it was boring. So I like this. Fluenz comes in software, it comes in an app, you can carry it on your phone, you can attach it to I think 3 different devices. So I'm not getting any perks for promoting them here. I just really believe in the program and I like them. And Sonia, who is the creator of it, I think she's really creative. So that's why I'm plugging it today, is I like Fluenz, and it has worked for me. They do offer a discount at Black Friday every year, so if you want to wait until Thanksgiving to order yours, and they also offer military discount, so take a look for that. I'll put the links in the description. So the next thing we were talking about, just it goes along with the local festivals, is joining and participating in the community. It is just so much fun for me when I am living and moving to a new country to get invited to a local festival. That might not be that big. It might just be a little tiny olive oil festival or a festival for celebrating pumpkins. But if a local person is inviting you to a local festival, 100% go. Just go. I promise you, you won't regret it. It'll be so much fun. You'll learn some of the language while they're there. And yeah, just go to these with your friends and communities. If they ask you to help out at a certain event, like handing out flyers or whatever, go do that with them. The community I'm moving to has a hiking and a yoga community, and we got invited, and we're a part of that now. And I'm so thrilled to be a part of that, part of the Camino Roma, which is part of the Camino Trail for Italy, is located just close to us too. So just join and be a part of the community. So here's the nuts and bolts about getting your ducks in a row if you're thinking about moving to Europe. It's going to be dependent on a few things. Mostly, it's going to be dependent on your decisions on how you want to be a resident, or if you want to be what's called a Schengen shuffler. And what's the difference? So the difference is there are visas available for sure if you want to apply for them, and that would include staying over 180 days. Right now, with our blue passports, American passports, we can stay 90 days during a 180-day period. And that is a rolling calendar. However, you just do not want to be caught off guard because the fines and the violation of that is huge. It includes a 2-year ban. You're out. So I use an app called the Schengen Simple, and I put the dates in that I'm going to be in Europe, and it boots out at me how many days I have left within the 180 days. That is the Schengen Shuffle. That's what John and I are planning on doing, at least for a little while. But there is another visa called an ERV, Elective Resident Visa. There's a lot more information on that. An income requirement is required when you apply for this, and you do have to go through the consulate that is in your region. So you'll want to definitely research that. There's also other visas available too. I do believe that they have a digital nomad visa for Italy. However, I think the visa is only good for 18 months. So take a look on the consulate site, what visas are accepted if you're considering being a resident over a 180-day period. So the next thing you'll want to do is find a realtor that you trust. Find one that you know speaks English, speaks Italian, and you can work with them easily. Pretty much let them know what you're looking for, the budget you're looking for, and the type of home that you'd like to have, whether it's for full-time or for part-time. The next thing is finding a bank that works with international bank transfers that also speak English as well as their native language. You're going to want both. So definitely find that. The right cell phone plan. We did not realize how critical this was. In Italy, for a lot of our verification, you needed to have a SIM Italian card attached to an Italian phone number, and we found out the hard way that our phones were not unlocked, and so we had to buy Italian phones with an Italian phone number in it to be verified by our bank. So it's not just the bank, but it's also like the post office. It's also the utilities. So it's critical that you have a cell phone plan that works. And one of the most important questions we found out was when you do decide on your house, find out where the towers are located. Because in Italy, it could be one provider over the other if they're in valleys and hills. So find out whose tower is it, and then I would recommend that's the internet coverage you want to go with. So then another thing that we considered when we were looking at homes was how far is local transportation from our property. And that's going to be pretty important because you cannot have a car in Italy if you are not a full-time resident. And if you are a resident, you have to take an Italian driver's license in Italian. So it's important that if you have that visa that you know Italian, you can take the test and get your license that way. You need to understand what that whole process is to own a car or have a car in the country you're moving to. So whether it's Italy or Germany or France, just know what the process is to have a car if you're only going to be a part-time resident. So I know I threw out a lot today. This was like one of the longest podcasts I've had in a long time, but there was a lot to share, and I've missed you guys. I haven't been here in a while, but I wanted to give you a teaser. This is just the first of a few podcasts I've decided to do because there's so much to share, but it's really exciting new chapter for us, and I am thrilled. So anyway, until next time, thanks so much. Remember, it's always an adventure when you travel with Wendy. Ciao.